And so this is unique in so many ways and on so many levels. Watch this. So when I say remain as the river, you said it means to what? Be in the flow? You said? What was that? Be always flowing. Be always flowing steady. Yeah. So I want to open your eyes and in your mind. I want to open your eyes and your mind to something that goes beyond present state of being, present state of awareness, present state of attainment, and that is perfect stillness. Now, present state is something that is on the physical level. Present state is something that you have to do right now while you're aware, self-aware, being aware of your surroundings, of the things, the situations, the tribulations and the trials that's happening to you. You can't be in the future about those things, and you can't be in the past about the things. You have to be present about those things. You understand what I'm saying? Because solutions don't come from being in the future. The solutions ain't coming from the future, and the solutions ain't coming from the past. They're coming from the now moment. And so when we talk about present state, this is for an awakened state. To be present is to be aware of what's really going on and aware of the solutions that need to be for the awakened state, the being that's being present in the awakened state. But when you talk about perfect stillness on a meditative level, on a spiritual conscious deep level, you're talking about perfect labor that gets done without you having to lift a finger. Now, why would I say this is perfect labor without you having to lift a finger? As I said before, the quote that comes from the Tao Te Ching, the book, the Tao Te Ching, it said that it said that nature does nothing yet everything is accomplished. Now, this is powerful because this is who we are. At the core of our beingness, we are nature. We are a part of nature. We come from that which is of nature, and we were not put here to work in a laboring sense where our work looks like jobs, 9 to 5. I punch a clock, I punch out. That's not work. Work on a natural level, work on a natural level has nothing to do with you doing anything, but it has everything to do with you being still, knowing that everything gets done in the stillness. Now, somebody would say, now, what do you mean by being still? Being still, like I don't move, I don't lift a finger in the in the actual, in the literal sense, like I don't lift a finger in the literal sense. No, you idiot. You know what I'm saying? Not calling you an idiot, but no, I'm not saying you don't lift a finger in the literal sense. We can't live in this world without lifting fingers. But what I am saying is to be perfectly still is to get all of your desires. See, we are to put away our needs and our wants, which comes from the present state of awakened, the present the present awakened state. We have needs and wants. But in the stillness and in the silence and the calmness and the peace, there is only a desire. A desire for what? A desire to be more of what you already are. Contentment becomes the contentment becomes the solution of the day, the solution of life, contentment. So when one finds stillness, that is something that happens within. That means you don't have these needs and these wants because your needs and your wants are something you have to go and work for. You have to go and get, but your desires, the things that you desire, you say, this is what I desire, but you know that you don't have to go and work for those desires. You just desire these things. You see what I'm saying? The word says that let the desires of your heart be made known. You understand what I'm saying? And so we can let our desires be made known, and we don't have to do no labor to do them. We just have to make our desires made known. And this comes from knowing that once your desires are made known through the heart, make your desires through the heart. Let your desires be made known through the heart. That's the only work you need to do is speak it from the heart. That's the only labor you have to put in is speak the desires of your heart. Speak them. And then you don't have to go and do no labor to get those desires to come to fruition. The work gets done. It gets done itself. So this is entering into the river. The remain as the river. perfect stillness, perfect calmness. And watch this on the river. When you're laying inside the river, you know, you're allowing this river to take you wherever it takes you. You see, when you're laying perfectly still inside the river, you're saying, I am wherever you want to take me, river. Take me there. Wherever you want to take me, wherever you want me to go, river, I will go. And you're not fighting against the river. You're not going against swimming up the river stream, going against the current. You're going with the flow of the river. Perfect stillness. Now, watch this. The river, you got all these distractions on the river. You got the branches that fall into the river causing distraction. You got the river banks on each side of the river causing distraction. And you got all those things that go on both sides of the river bank that make you want to stop and get out and check those things out. You understand what I'm saying? But once you remain like the river, what does the river do? The river doesn't care what tries to get in its way. It will roll you over. It will get through you. The river will continue to go. And that's what happens in the flow. The flow is you don't have to do no labor yet. Like nature, everything is done. You don't have to do no labor yet. The river will move things out the way for you. The river will cut through anything that gets in its way. Now, when you put your problems on it, watch this. When you put your problems inside the river, see, God is in the undisturbed. You see, God is not disturbed. God is in the undisturbed. The river is undisturbed. Now, when you begin to put your problems inside the river, your anxiety, your stresses, your depression, your thoughts, your engagements, your worriness, your emotions, when you throw all those things inside the river, guess what you're doing? Like a beaver, you're building up a river dam. Now, what happens when you build a dam inside the river? Now the river doesn't flow anymore. What does the river do? It begins to what? It begins to rise. The river begins to rise. So once you build a dam becomes your emotions, your problems, your thoughts, your engagements, your stresses, your worries, your doubts, your fears. This is the dam, the wood that builds up the dam inside the river. You put those problems inside the river. Now you've built a dam. Now, what happens with a dam is instead of the river being able to flow, the river rises. And so, what happens in the metaphysical sense? Well, your problems begin to rise within you. See, the river begins to rise, but though the river becomes your problems because you threw them in the river, and so the river begins to rise. The water begins to rise, and that's what happens to your anxiety, your emotions, your thoughts, your engagements. All these problems, worries, and doubts, they begin to rise and intensify. And what happens when the river starts to rise and intensify? Flooding happens. And so when your problems begin to rise because you made a dam out of them, and so now the river, you backed up the river, the problems begin to rise now. And once they start to rise, they intensify within you. So your anxieties, your depression, because you put a block inside the flow, causing it to rise now. And because your anxieties and your depressions and your problems are rising up within you, this is causing your problems to intensify. You begin to worry more. You begin to stress more. You begin to lose sleep. You begin to stop eating. You begin to lose your appetite. You begin to not go to work. You begin to get lethargic and muscle atrophy. You begin to get you become bewildered by the amazement and the overwhelming of your problems, your stresses and your thoughts and all these engagements. They become overwhelming for you. And so when you put the problems inside the river, you stop the flow. Now, what happens is once the river starts to rise, they intensify, your problems intensify. And then, like the river, when it rises and it begins to intensify, what happens when the river rises? It starts to create flooding. So the water is going to spill out over the edges. The water got to go somewhere. It's going to break the levees. It's going to spill out over the tub. You put a stopper in the tub, the water starts to rise up. So now the water has to overflow outside of the tub now. And so now you cause water damage. You're causing all this damage within your home. You're causing all this damage within the city because the water begins to rise and flood all over the city. And so it's starting to cause water damage. You understand what I'm saying? And so this is what happens within the being. Once they put their problems inside the river flow, the problems rise up, intensify. These are your problems. They intensify in you. They double, they quadruple, you know, and next thing you know, you are dealing with your problems on an intensified level till you can't even handle them anymore. They overflow and they've gotten out of control. You can't even grab them back in to take control of them. They've gotten too out of control to where it start to spill over in other people's lives. It start to spill over in other people's lives, affecting other people. You understand? And this is what your emotions can do, your thoughts can do, your engagements can do, your doubts can do, your worries can do, your stresses can do, your depression can do. This is what they begin to do. They start to overflow and rise over into other people's territory, other people's property, other and destroying other people's lives. You understand? But when you stop trying to worry, when you stop worrying, when you stop doubting, when you stop fearing, when you stop thinking about the things that need to be solved and taken care of, when you stop doing all of that, do the flow continue? And as the river, you are undisturbed by your problems. God is in the undisturbed. You are undisturbed by your problems, allowing yourself to continue to flow. You continue to flow, continue to flow, continue to flow, and then the way and the channels begin to open up, meaning that nothing is going to stop you. The river will create channels inside anything that tries to get in its way. The only thing that can stop the river from flowing is your problems, your emotions. You make your problems a dam and the river rises. But when you remove your problems, remove your emotions, your thoughts, and all that, when you remove all of that out of the way and you become undisturbed by these things, then can you flow? And when anything that is not of your own problem, when anything that is of anybody else's problem, when anything that is of anybody else's doing, when they throw themselves into your river, guess what? You just create a channel right through them. You don't allow them to stop you. You become, because you are such a force, one with nature, that the river flow continues to create what? A channel right through these people who throw themselves in your way, who throw themselves in your way as problems, who throw themselves in your way as trying to affect you, who throw themselves in your way as hate, who throw themselves in your way as distractions. When people begin to throw themselves in your river, you don't have to stop being who you are. You don't have to stop and address them. You keep being undisturbed. You be undisturbed, and you go into the and you stay in the stillness. You be undisturbed, stand in stillness, and you will create a channel right on through them. You will not be affected by them, and what they have to distract you with will not affect you. You will not be affected by them, and you will not be able to see their distraction. You'll just create a channel right through them, parting the Red Sea, making them two riverbanks on each side. You will be making them out of a riverbank. Is what you would be doing, one on each side, because you will be parting right through them. You understand what I'm saying? Creating a channel, and that's what happens when you create a channel. You're opening the way for more things to flow in, more things to continue to go out. You understand? And so this is what happens when you create a channel. You are not to hold on to anything. You are to let go. Open yourself up. Become a channel so that things for your good can come in and things for your bad can go out. You see, the things that are for your bad don't stick. The things that are meant to do you harm, they go out along with the rest of the things that come in. So even when your good comes in, when the good comes in, you take that in, you absorb that, but the good you allow to continue to keep going. You're like, look, I'm not to hold on emotionally to the things that are good in my life into the things that are bad. Why? Because eventually, if I hold on to the things that are good, eventually it's going to want to be let go of. And if I don't want to let it go now, it's going to hurt me later to let it go later. So you create yourself a channel, you make yourself a river, you make yourself open to receive and to let go so that nothing can stick emotionally and affect you emotionally. See, we are to be still. You see, we are to be still because God is in the undisturbed. When we become still, we become undisturbed. When we become still, we become undisturbed. And that's only when we become still, not worried about anything, not putting our fears and our thoughts and our worries on things. But when we become still, everything opens up to us. This is the perfect stillness and the perfect silence. You understand? This is the stillness and the silence. This is the stillness. This is the way that God is. You understand? The God being within us. You understand what I'm saying? This is the God being within us. The divine nature of God is that of just looking at nature. Simple. The divine being within us is that of nature. We enter into the flow. Feeling love operate within. My proverb said it today. The best, the knowledge, the beginning of knowledge, of all knowledge, is the knowledge of self. And the end of all knowledge is the knowledge of God. But it takes one to go within, you know, to get that intuitive knowledge, because intuitive knowledge trumps all knowledge. Nothing is comparable to the intuitive knowledge that one has within themselves when they go in to get to know themselves. And when they get to know themselves, they're really getting to know God, that which they are made up of, nature, the force of nature, the power of nature. God is nature. You are God, and you are a part of nature as God is. And you are a force as God is a force of nature, God's, itself. And so when you go within and get that intuitive knowledge, you begin to learn who you are, and therefore nothing can disturb you. Why? Because you control all things in your world. You control all things. You are in power. You are in control. Nothing can disturb you. So you can't give things your thoughts and emotions. We know this already. We know this. You got to let go of things when they prompt themselves up in your life. And you got to be like, nah, this is not for my highest, not my good. We can't say for my good, because good comes and good goes. But we got to say, this is not for my highest. Why? Because the ideal is to always elevate. Why? Because in your highest is where God is. Always in your highest is where God is. And God is in the undisturbed. You cannot rise, you cannot greet God in oneself. You cannot go to God, you cannot meet God. You cannot meet God on the highest level if you come in disturbed. If you are coming in disturbed, you cannot meet God on the highest level if you are coming in disturbed. You have to meet God where God is, at the undisturbed level, inside the flow, inside the stillness. Only when you get still do you meet God. Only when you get still do you see God, hear from God, feel God, and know that you are God. Only when you get still. You understand? So grab on to this nature.